afternoon. Today we're going to be going over the Medication Administration Child Care Center per our policy as well as State of Texas minimum standards to ensure the safe and effective medicine practices for children in our centers. Overview and responsibility in medication administration. Medication administration in a child care setting is a very serious responsibility that directly affects the health, safety, and well-being of children in our care. This training is designed to clearly define expectations, limits, and legal responsibilities for childcare staff when handling the administering medication. The primary purpose is to prevent medication errors, ensure compliance with center policies, and protect both children and staff from harm and liability. Medications, whether prescription or over-the-counter, can have serious side effects if given incorrectly, in the wrong dose, to the wrong child, or without proper authorization. For this very reason, medication administration must always follow strict procedures. Child care centers are responsible for ensuring that medication are handled safely and in accordance with written policies. Staff must understand that administering medication is not an automatic requirement of their job. At no time is a staff member required to administer medication if they feel uncomfortable, uncertain, or believe that proper requirements have not been met. Staff have the right and responsibility to say no when safety or policy standards are not met, and to immediately notify administration. Although in our centers, only administration is allowed to administer medication. No staff ever can administer any medication without trained and proper communication with administration. Another critical purpose of this training is to reinforce that responsibility for providing medication rests with the parent or guardian. Childcare staff may never supply medication from another child or their own. You have your child's leftover medication, the center, or their own supplies. For example, Johnny may never be given Emma's medication to help with Johnny's fever. Medication must be specifically provided by the child's parent or guardian from home and must be intended for only their child. This training ensures consistency, accountability, and a shared understanding that safety and policy compliance always come in child care centers in medication practices. Authorization and eligibility to administer medications. Who may administer medication and when in your schools? In Child Care Center, medication administration is limited to designated administrators only in our center. That includes our Hewlin location as well as Montessori location. This restriction is essential to reduce the risk of errors and to ensure that only trained, authorized individuals are handling medications. Should you be asked by your director to administer medication without the communication and/or training, you have the right to say no. Staff who are not designated administrators, you must not administer medication under any circumstances. Even designated administrators must follow all center policies and procedures exactly as written. Sometimes even try to see if parents can give the medication during the drop-off and pickup. Try to avoid those situations where you have to administer medication that could have been possibly given at home. Equally important is understanding that administering medication is voluntary and situational. At no time center is required to administer medication, and at no time is a staff member required to administer medication if they feel uncomfortable or unsure. If there's confusion about the dosage, the medication label, the child's condition, or authorization form, the correct action is to refuse the administration and immediately contact me and the parents. This protects both the child and the staff member. Every medication requires a completed medication authorization form provided by licensing before it can be administered. The parent must fill out the dosage, the child's name, date of birth, the expiration date, and what medication. This includes prescription medication, over-the-counter medication, and all ointment creams and topical treatments. Authorization must be completed in advance by the parent or guardian. Verbal permission is never acceptable. Without a completed authorization form, medication must not be administered, regardless of who the child or parent is, even if they're related to you. The center, not the parents, holds responsibility for compliance, and expectations are not permitted. This strict approach ensures fairness, consistency, and safety for all children. It also eliminates pressure on staff and reinforces the policy exists to protect everyone involved. When authorization is missing or incomplete, the correct response is always to say no and follow reporting procedures. Medication containers, labeling, and dose verification. Before any medication is administered, staff must carefully verify that the medication meets all required standards. Medication must always be in its original container. Do not take anything in Tupperware or Ziploc. It doesn't matter what medicine they're giving you. This applies to both prescription and over-the-counter medications. Original containers provide critical information including medication name, dosage instruction, expiration date, and safety warnings. Medications transferred to baggies, unlabeled containers, or shared packaging may never be accepted or administered. Even multivitamins. The container must clearly match the information on the medication authorization form. The child's full name, date of birth, dosage amount, and administration instruction must be clearly identifiable and accurate. If the medication label does not match the authorization form, the medication must not be given. Expiration dates must always be checked, as expired medications are not permitted to be administered under any circumstances. But wait though, is your expiration on the medication authorization form still valid to even administer that medication? Please make sure you confirm that before administering any medication that your authorization form is still valid. A double verification process is also required every time medication is given, just to make sure you don't make any, unintentional mistakes. This means verifying the correct child, correct medication, correct dose, correct time, and correct method of administration. Double checking reduces the risk of human error and ensures safe practice. Staff should never rush medication administration, even during busy periods. Although parents should be made aware that we're not authorized to give your child medication and we cannot promise to give it on the exact time, as we do have other responsibility and children to care for. We will try our very best to administer medication at the asked time. It is critical to understand that medication may never be shared between children. One child's medication may not be used for another child, even if symptoms are similar. Safe storage and handling of medication. Proper storage of medication is also a very critical component of medication safety in childcare. All medication must be stored in a locked medication cabinet or designated medication refrigerator, depending on storage instructions. Medication must always be kept out of reach and accessible to children. Under no circumstances should medication be left unattended, stored in a classroom areas, or place where children can actually have access to it. Medication that requires refrigeration must be stored separately from food and clearly labeled, maybe in a Ziploc bag. Staff must routinely monitor those storage areas to ensure medication remains secure and that expiration dates are checked regularly. Failure to store medication properly can result in accidental ingestion, loss of effectiveness, or serious safety incidents. If the medication is expired or a child has been withdrawn, please ensure that you either discard and/or have the parent collect the medication to be in compliance. Handling medication also requires attention to hygiene and accuracy. Staff should follow proper hand washing procedures before and after administering the medication. Measuring devices provided with the medication should only be used, and household utensils such as spoons should never be substituted. Clear documentation must accompany every administration. Safe storage and handling practices reinforces the center's responsibility to maintain a secure environment. These procedures protect children, staff, and the center by reducing the risks and ensuring compliance with the policy. When storage or handling requirements cannot be met, medication must not be administered and administration should be notified immediately. Administration can add it to their calendar once a month to go over this medication expiration check requirement to be in compliance. Refusal, documentation, and center accountability. When not to administer and why documentation matters. There are clear solutions in which medication must not be administered in childcare settings. These include missing or incomplete authorization forms, expired medication, medications not in original containers, mismatched labelings, or any situation where staff feel unsure or uncomfortable. In these cases, the correct and required action is to refuse administration and notify the center management immediately. I personally cannot tell you how many times I had to refuse a parent or two to let them know that I cannot administer the medication because they have brought it in Ziploc bag and or in a Tupperware, or it absolutely has nothing to do with their child and they can probably give it to them before they even drop them off. Staff must remember that refusing to administer medication under unsafe condition is not a failure to help a child. It is a professional responsibility. Licensing also do not require us to administer any medication. The center is not required to administer medication, and staff are protected when they do follow this policy and prioritize safety. Clear communication with administration and parent is essential when medication cannot be given. Educating your parents is our responsibility on all of our policies and regulations, keeping their children safe. Documentation is a critical part of medication administration. Every dose administered must be documented accurately, including the date, the time, the dosage, and the staff member's initial or signature. Refusals, errors, or unusual reactions must also be documented according to center procedures. Documentation creates accountability, leaves a paper trail for it, supports transparency, and provides protection for the center and staff. Ultimately, the Child Care Center is responsible for ensuring that all medication policies are followed consistently. No exceptions may be made based on familiarity with the family or perceived urgency. By following authorization requirements, storage rules, verification procedure, and documentation standards, staff help create a safe, compliant, and trustworthy childcare environment.